Hello, world. Welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. Hello, world, and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We're broadcasting live from the Joy Virtual Studio right here in the beautiful Finger Lakes region of New York State. It is so great to be with all of you today. It is Wednesday, August 20th, the epicenter of yet another busy broadcast week. And you see the headline for today's show. The Last American Vagabond, Cristián, will be with us today on the show at the bottom of the hour. The title, The UNIPARTY Cartel, Epstein, Techno-Fascism in the Military Police State. Will liberty prevail? We're going to have a critical conversation with one of the foremost independent journalists in the United States of America today, Cristián. He is the host of The Last American Vagabond, and he is one of the leading independent journalists in the country. We'll delve in today to the big picture tyranny, transforming this beautiful country into a digital surveillance state. We'll look at the tactics, the techniques, and the culprits. Of course, we know, those of you who have been with me for 12 years, who understand the nature of politics today, that it is a uniparty. Both political parties are to blame for all of this, both Trump and Biden. The question is, why can't more people see this? As you know, George Washington, hundreds of years ago, warned this country about factions. And it's interesting how prescient his words were. It's also interesting to consider the fact that human nature and politics never changes. Whether it's 200 years ago, 2,000 years ago, or 4,000 years ago, during the time of Jesus Christ, human nature, the nature of politics never, ever changes. Whether it's the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the rebels and the British Army or the British Navy, or Democrats and Republicans today, it's always the same. There are always going to be men who seek to oppress other men. And there will always be factions and sides and confusion and propaganda and lies and misrepresentation. It's just a matter of being able to spot it. But this is what George Washington said. He said, however, factions, or as you would know them today, political parties, may now and then answer popular ends. They are likely in the course of time and things to become potent engines by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men will be enabled to subvert the power of the people and to usurp for themselves the reins of government, destroying afterwards the very engines in which have lifted them to the unjust dominion which they enjoy. Isn't that the truth of what we are seeing today in the United States of America? The plight of the little guy, the engine of this country, small businesses and free men and women engaging in the pursuit of happiness, trying to pursue liberty, but being smashed down at every turn by laws, regulations, unjust executive orders, emergency declarations, the expansion of the police state or the bureaucratic state, the medical industrial complex, the military industrial complex, all of the things. And it just seems, I don't know how all you feel, but it just seems as if everything is ramping up and accelerating. The news cycle getting faster and faster, almost as if these tyrants are desperate to maintain control, but get the sense that we, the people, are beginning to figure things out. Today, we will have these conversations with Cristián. How can we break this population, out of the two-party political cult system so that we can see the truth? The truth is dire, but it's not impossible. And the truth will set you free, right? If we want nice things, if we want to be free, if we want to pass something on to our kids, we have to acknowledge the truth. And when we have Con Inc. and the left-wing news media and the Democrats and the Republicans lying to our faces at every turn about everything, we will not be able to get out of this and secure our liberty for our posterity, our children. So that's the mission of the show every day. As you guys know, we don't sit in either political paradigm, not left, not right, just the truth every day here in the Shannon Joy Show. The good news is there are so many other independent networks and outlets and journalists and commentators out there who are beginning to break through. And Ryan Cristián is one of those voices. He's also one of the leaders in the Free Thought projects, people who are looking to expand the base, expand the reach of independent news media outlets and journalists. And we're going to talk about that today as well. First, I want to say hello to all of you on the live chat. You look amazing. Thank you to our friends at Rumble. The Shannon Joy Show is broadcast live today from Rumble, Twitter, Spreely TV, Roku TV, Apple TV. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Substack, and every podcast platform you can imagine if you'd like to listen to the Shannon Joy Show at your leisure every day, thanks to our partnership over at the Radcast Network. Again, thank you to Inez Annie Cyrus, who is producing the show today, and of course, our sponsors, Colonial Metals Group. I had a conversation yesterday, very well-known, very brilliant economic analyst. And the situation here in the United States of America is dire. Despite what they're saying to you about the golden economy and the golden age here in the United States of America, everyone who knows everything understands that the wheels are falling off this jalopy of an economy. And this is why every American needs a gold and silver strategy, period. End of sentence. If you have waited, if you have delayed in talking to our friends over at Colonial Metals Group because you think you have some time, please reconsider. He was telling me that, and I'm going to get into what he told me, word on the street, but the big news is he's saying within the next couple months to the next 6 to 8 months, we are going to see what he said is a disastrous crash. I mean, worse than the real estate bubble, worse than the dot-com bubble, worse than the situation after the lockdowns of 2020. And it is going to it's going to sweep away so many people who are trusting the two political parties, investing in Bitcoin and putting all of their eggs in the Wall Street basket. You need to diversify, and the smart money is going into gold and silver, whether it's through a physical purchase, which you can do at Colonial Metals Group, or moving over a portion of your 401k or your IRA into a gold and silver backed, independent, self-directed IRA. It's what I have. It is so easy to set up. I didn't have a ton of money. I had a little extra. I set up my IRA through Colonial Metals Group, and now I'm contributing a couple $100 every single month. It's part of my retirement strategy, and it helps me diversify. This is not a recommendation or financial advice for all of you, but it's what I do. And I trust the folks over at Colonial Metals Group. Please do not delay. colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy, colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy, so that you can begin to learn how to diversify, how to protect your retirement and hedge against the corruption and the chaos and the economic catastrophe, which I believe is coming very quickly to the United States of America. CJP Rumble is with us today on the live chat. CJ, it's so good to see you. Jen Patton is with us today as well. Be My Valentine, great to see you on the live chat. Mark the Regan, is Shannon having Ed Dowd on the show again anytime soon? Well, the answer is yes. We're going to be having Ed Dowd in mid-September. I'm also working on the amazing Catherine the Great. Catherine Austin Fitz will be with us as well. Mid-September, we have set up Derek Bros for a couple weeks from now. Sasha Latapova will be in next week. And we also have an amazing guest, Jason Bassler, who is going, he's been on the show before. We're going to go over your rights next week as we are seeing the expansion of the military police state starting in Washington, D.C., but Donald Trump says it's coming to Chicago, it's coming to L.A., it's coming to New York City, Baltimore, and other cities across the country. This is completely unconstitutional. It is completely tyrannical. It is fascistic, and you need to know your rights. We're going to be talking about your God-given natural rights with Jason Bassler next week on the Shannon Joy Show. Also, Sasha Latypova, huge developments in the case of crimes against humanity in the Netherlands. This is a blockbuster lawsuit that is being brought in the Netherlands. Sasha Latypova, Catherine Austin Fitz, Michael Yeadon, and also Joe Sansone, one of our favorites. They have been called to testify in this case. Recent development, their testimony has been declined, but they are going to appeal that, and we are also going to see written testimony as well. So Sasha will be with us next week to talk about that. This is the case where they have arrested the lead attorney under no charges whatsoever, and he's being held without charges right now, but the case is still going on. It is an unbelievable story. We'll have Sasha in next week to talk about that. The big, massive elephant in the room, the democide of 2020, 21, and 22, the crimes against humanity. This is why I was so hopped up yesterday in my reading of the Washington Post piece by Jay Bhattacharya. The gaslighting by this HHS administration is not okay. And we are not going to forget what Western governments inflicted upon their own people with both political parties in the years of 2020, 21, and 22. I am so thankful that there is still an independent network of attorneys, scientists, researchers, politicians, and advocates who are refusing to let this go. This case in the Netherlands is going to be very important. I cannot wait to talk to Sasha about that. We also have Char Kubani on the live chat. Great to see you as well. Garth Hilton, go Netherlands. Shout out to Garth Hilton and the folks over at Tactical Civics. Had an amazing conversation with Garth, some of the organizers over at tacticalcivics.com. If you want to learn about bottom-up advocacy and organization and how to get a grand jury established in your county, you're going to want to check out the folks over at Tactical Civics. We'll be talking about a little bit more about that in the coming weeks. I really enjoyed my time with you, Garth, and learning about what you guys are doing. It's a great organization. Again, sits outside of those two-party political systems, is not waiting for an election or the electoral process to save them from the tyrants in Washington, D.C. We know we have to seize back power at the local level. And one critical component of that is the county grand jury. So Garth Hilton, I so appreciate you. Also want to give a shout out to a couple other listeners and viewers of the Shannon Joy Show. My brother-in-law told me the most amazing story about a couple weeks ago. He lives in Boca Raton, Florida. He goes running every single day. And he struck up a conversation with a fellow who was always on his same path. He would sit on the beach and have his laptop out, and Nate saw him every single day. And at one point, they stopped for whatever reason and started up a conversation. And so they're chatting, they're going back and forth. And this guy has his laptop open. And somehow the conversation goes to politics. And then it goes to, I don't know, my sister-in-law. She has a show. It's called The Shannon Joy Show. And she said this about that. And this gentleman turns his laptop around and is like, I was just listening to The Shannon Joy Show down here in Florida. And it just blew my brother-in-law away. So for the guy in Boca Raton, Florida, who is watching the Shannon Joy Show every day, thank you so much. I so appreciate you. And for so many of you, you guys reach out to me via email. I get messages all the time. I try to read all of them. I can't respond to all of them. But I do want to let all of you know how I how much I appreciate all of you. Those of you on the live chat, those of you who are listening across the country in Florida, on the West Coast, I so appreciate you. So we may be having a error in connections. Annie, if you could let me know if the live stream is still going. I do see a red error notification. So we might have to go to a quick commercial break, uh, depending on, okay, the feed is running. Great. Guitar Lily, Shannon, Monroe County has had a grand jury. Nothing came out of it. Guitar Lily, I understand it is a difficult process. And you're right. If you have one grand jury in one county at one time trying to do things in that lone wolf fashion, you're going to have some difficulty. But if we begin the process of true organic bottom up organization and we can get 100 grand juries in 100 counties, all working together loosely towards the same ends, liberty and a restoration of our constitutional principles, then you're going to have a little more oomph. Right. So I get it. It's not easy. And, but we are going to explore that issue of grand juries. And Garth Hilton has this to say, some of the grand juries are not functioning as they were intended. So there are some key components of the formation of these grand juries that we're going to look into. And I assure you, we'll get you guys all of the great information. So let's say hello to a couple more of you on the live chat. Rothan Walker, great to see you. Jen Patton is with us on the live chat. Make sure you guys give us a thumbs up and a share and a follow here on the Shannon Joy Show Rumble page. We're going to go to a break. I do see that Ryan Cristián is in the studio and getting ready to join us. So we're going to go to break in a minute, but I want to also give a shout out to a new advertiser on the Shannon Joy Show through our partnership on Rumble. I used this yesterday and slept like a baby. It is Perfect Sleep Max. So if you have stress or anxiety, tight muscles, the type of things that can keep you up at night and can shut down your body's natural sleep switch, your mind and body are begging to relax. And a lot of people want a natural way to fall asleep. Well, I'd love to tell you about Perfect Sleep Max and invite you to go to perfectorigins.com/perfect sleep/SJS. They have a great special for this audience. It is a 100% risk-free 180-day guarantee. It is so that you can reclaim your sleep. You can send back an empty bottle, but this is just for the Joy audience. It has an amazing mix, a blend of ingredients that are going to help you sleep. With L-theanine, 400 milligrams, and GABA, this helps quiet your mind and reduce stress without sedation, so all natural. It also has mood and sleep support, mucuna pruriens seed, plus 5-HTP. They promote dopamine and serotonin to uplift your mood and support a restful sleep. They also, of course, have melatonin to calm physical relaxation. It aids in your sleep cycle, and also magnesium. Now, I've been taking magnesium and melatonin separately, but this great product combines them into one amazing formula that is completely natural. It relaxes your muscles and your nervous system and will get you to sleep at night. It is clean, it's non-GMO, and it's just all natural, focused sleep support. So right now they're giving a one-time $39 per bottle, $99 for 3 months, or $174 for 6 months. There is an auto ship, free shipping, plus that 180-day money back guarantee. So you can try it for 3 months. If you don't like it, just ship it back and you'll get a full refund. So the Perfect Origins URL is in the live chat of the Shannon Joy Show, and Annie is also going to post it under the comments section. It is www.perfectorigins.com/perfect sleep/SJS for the Shannon Joy Show. We are going to go to a quick break. When we come back, without further ado, let's introduce our guest today, Ryan Cristián. He is the Last American Vagabond and one of the leading independent podcasters and journalists in the country. We have a lot to talk about the big picture tyranny that is transforming this country. And I cannot wait to talk to Ryan again. Keep it tuned right here. We'll be back in a moment on the Shannon Joy Show. Gold and silver has been in kind of a sideways up down. It hasn't really grown a lot, but this is part of a larger trend that Jesse Colombo has been watching over the past couple of years. And he is predicting that gold could rise another $900 in just the next couple of months. And silver is not far behind. There's a lot of chatter about silver as well being suppressed artificially by the big gold and silver companies for many years, but it continues to break out. It continues to maintain the value that it has right now. The point of all of this being that if you are invested 100% in the stock market, if you're concerned about your 401k, if you're concerned that your IRA or 401k could lose its value or even be manipulated by new legislation that is opening the door up to private equity and also cryptocurrencies within your 401k or IRA, now is the time to have a conversation about this with our friends over at Colonial Metals Group. It is so easy to move a portion of your 401k or IRA into gold and silver backed instruments. It is a hedge against this chaos and the corruption, and it can back up your savings. You have been working too hard for too long to save. You've done everything that is right. And the fact that these corrupt and nasty politicians, left and right, are going to come in and screw things up so badly that regular Americans might not have, access or their investments might not be able to cover their expenses into retirement is just atrocious. And this is why so many Americans are moving into gold and silver backed investments. Colonial Metals Group is the company I trust. Go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. That is colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. It does not hurt to have a conversation. They are amazing. They know this audience and they will walk you through this process. It's super easy. colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce my next guest, hopefully a regular guest in the Shannon Joy Show. Ryan Cristián joins us today. He is the Last American Vagabond, an amazing podcast, one of the must watches for the Shannon Joy Show. He is a resource for this show. He also has a great following on the Twit. His handle is at TLA Vagabond. That's TLA Vagabond. And you can support his efforts at thelastamericannvagabond.com. Ryan Cristián, how are you doing today?
Not bad. How are you? Thanks for the introduction. Good to be back.
I'm amazing. And it's been too long since you've been with us here on the program. I've been keeping an eye on your Twitter feed and also your podcast, a blockbuster just recently, Tiptoeing Towards Technocracy. Ryan is an independent, guys. He is an expert in the technocracy. He understands the nature of the times that we live in today. The most important element, I think, of his reporting and his analysis is that he sits out of that two-party political paradigm. In my opinion, Ryan, the only place to be if you are occupying a truth space today is independent. It is a rejection of the left and a rejection of the right, wholesale. Not tiptoeing or parsing, this understanding that both parties are working together against the interests of the average American and the Constitution and liberty.
Yeah.
The question is, why is it so difficult? Let's start there with the big picture paradigm, which I think is critical to any analysis. Why is it that it is so difficult, Ryan, for people to extricate themselves from that paradigm so that they can see clearly?
It's completely wrapped up with people's identities. I think this is clearly by design, that people absorb, end up aligning much more with the direction of the corporate party line, and what the money all the money moving around it ultimately wants from it, or maybe just what the team decides is best for their inner circle's agenda or the greater agenda. The point is that they side more with what that is, even often over what they truly want or their principles, and it's like we talked about, I think last time, I call it team sport politics. It's
Right.
where you want to side with your team much more than like you see it with a football game we've talked about, where your team maybe doesn't really make it in. You're hoping the ref will rule for you anyway, and you cheer when you get the wrong call because that's it's not necessarily seen as dishonest in a football game. So it's kind of the way that people tend to view this is they feel like promoting their team even for the wrong reasons is more important. And then you could fill in the blank, because the other side's worse, because she would have been worse, whatever or other way around. Both sides do the same thing.
Yeah.
To the
I
point of
think
independence. Oh, go ahead.
keep going.
Well, just that I think I agree with you. It's paramount today, but it's not just necessarily not us taking part in team sport politics, because I don't think it's wrong to necessarily identify with certain, party lines, but make sure it's about your principles rather than the team. But it's also about the financial side of it. That's what I think is more about the independence, is being guided by not necessarily only getting funded by mail-in donations, but being guided entirely by those directions and what you think is correct, not necessarily what the money is guiding you to. And both those things we both see influence this entire field, every single day.
Let's talk about the media, left-wing media, right-wing media, the rise of the influencer. It's become very muddied, and you see the accusations hurled around on a regular basis that so and so is owned by pharma, owned by big tech, owned by Bitcoin, owned by Israel, owned by other foreign entities, owned by the Russians or the Chinese or the Democrat Party or the Republican Party. And the reality is, I would say from my observation, and I don't have any data to support this, this is just my hunch, but I would say it's probably likely that the vast majority of your left wing or right wing news media outlets and the influencers are taking money. They're taking money on the down low. They're not disclosing these sponsors or supporters or revenue streams, and they are manipulating and lying to their audiences,
Oh
selling
yeah.
them propaganda. Your thoughts about that?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's no denying that's a major part of this field. And the way I look at it is that today, or rather that before, the kind of a shift we've seen into sort of mainstream alternative media, the mainstream recognizing they need to control this sphere instead of laugh at it. That we've seen the old style, which was what you're talking about, and it still exists, right? But where it's just blunt influence. Can
Right.
we control the platform they're on? Can we give them enough money to change their opinions? Can we, or all of that? And I think that's clearly today still a problem, but as I think we might have touched on last time we talked, I think a large part of it, if not maybe the majority, because they see, power structures, corporations, lobbyists, advertisers, they see that we notice that, right? So
Right.
today, it's more about, I think, doing so, and the same way, by the way, they conduct foreign policy in ways that maybe people don't want to admit to themselves or don't even really recognize, through willful ignorance, or maybe just that they don't even know, or maybe they don't care enough about the right reasons. Maybe they want to talk about the truth, maybe because they think it's profitable or they enjoy it, but not because it's a passionate drive because we want to solve problems, right? My point is, you have this huge crowd of people that may not necessarily see it or admit to themselves that they are being used. Like
Right.
these TikTokers that rise up out of nowhere, right? And they get all this funding, and to them, they're going, "I must be doing something right," and they're going,
Right.
so
I
they
must be really good.
right. Well, and in some cases, maybe they are. That's why they
Yeah.
get the funding, because they got a good voice. But then they don't. They're coming into this new, right? So they don't really see all the moving parts, and so they get kind of audience captured. They go, well, I like this topic, so they stay with it. They start avoiding other things, and they wake up a year later, and it's like, I'm not even making decisions anymore, and it wasn't like a
Mm.
conscious choice. But I think a lot of them don't even admit it to themselves. They don't want to pull that string and see where the money's coming from. I think that's the majority today. Just my gut tells me that. But you're right. I mean, it's a huge problem, and it's all over the place. And to your point, exactly, far too many of the people at like the team sport level is exactly that. They know what they're doing. They're taking money from people they don't want you to see, and they just act like they're independent because that's the new thing, right? And it's sad to see.
Sometimes it's blatant. I will say, I mean, this is it's at the forefront of my mind every day. I've been doing this for 12 years. And I am always, I mean, the structure of my show, we are supported by advertisers. So I tell the people who our advertisers are, we disclose who our sponsors are. So the
Right.
audience knows when it is editorial, and then when we're talking to a sponsor or we have an advertisement, and then small dollar donations from the audience. And that's
Mhm.
really how we keep the lights on here at the Shannon Joy
Right.
Show. But at the forefront, I'm always cognizant of influence, whether it's influence that is being curated and thrown at me on social media, whether it is influence through partnerships and collaborations or even advertisers or corporate sponsors, whether it's, influence from some of my peers in the industry or even my own audience. Like there's
Right.
none of us are immune to influence. But
Right.
I think that the first step, though, is having, I suppose, the humility to acknowledge that and understand that,
Yeah.
and then put certain guardrails in place so that that is less likely to occur. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. Just, I think that's all you can do, right? And just be aware, be on guard. There's different paths in this field. And advertising, there's nothing wrong with any of that, especially if it's something you believe in.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating to me that in this field, I think we all go through this at a certain phase. I honestly think it's by design to kind of make people feel like there's no future in this, but then people
Yes.
overwhelming attack, like,
Yes.
"Why are you asking for donations? How dare you?" And then
Right.
they go support the largest media personalities that make $1 million a year. It's like,
Right.
clearly, you do anything you care about, or you do anything, you produce work. Of course, you want some return for that, whether that's, just somebody saying it looks nice or because you want to get paid for it. It's
Mhm.
weird that in this field we get treated like by somehow gaining or profiting from what we're doing is a wrong thing. And
Mm,
if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, then I would agree with that. But nobody knows intention for sure. So my point
yeah.
at the end of the day, you have to do what you can to make this thing work. And if you do it with integrity, then all the better. I early just realized how very difficult it is. And good on you for finding ways to make that work, like through the advertising side of it, because
Yeah.
they're conflicted because of where their money comes from. And so it's very difficult. I found it just very hard to do. I even tried
Yeah.
again not too long ago because I'm still going through the lawsuits and paying off the lawyers to fight it all. But there was a moment where I was
Wow.
like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this without finding more revenue. So I couldn't get anything. I
Yeah.
didn't do it because people didn't want to, they didn't want to hurt their brand by, even though they supported the work, and so
Right.
I ultimately went very, in donations, whether it's through mail
Yeah.
or the other platforms, just if you build it, they will come. My mindset, do the right thing, people will support it, and I think I've proven that out to a degree. But it's important to find this path in a way that aligns with your principles and your integrity. But we can't do this for free. How?
Absolutely. No, Ryan, I completely agree with you. And I laid awake many, many nights, like trying to put these pieces of a puzzle together, right? Like,
Mhm.
how am I going to do this ethically? How am I going to have a
Right.
business? How do I maintain independence? How do I bring in revenue? Because I do have a responsibility to my family and my husband, my children. It is not, I'm not rich. So you have to come here and kind of figure these things out. But it's very difficult. Now, I had one of the keys, I think, for me was that I had about 13, 14 years of advertising and sales experience. I was an ad
Mhm.
executive in radio, television, and billboards.
Yeah,
So
it definitely helps.
right, and it's a lot of hustle, man. Like,
Yes.
you're out
Yeah.
there, you are prospecting, pitching, closing,
Right.
collecting. You know what I mean? So it's a full time job in addition to being a presenter every day. But I had to do it that way, right? There was no other way. But you know what? We should get together after the show, and I'll share some of my agencies with you, and we'll see if we can get you
Yeah.
some.
Oh,
Yeah,
I would happily welcome that. But
yeah,
I really do want to say in general that I'm feel blessed and just the amount of people, individuals out there that have come, just decided to support this platform, TLAV in general, and given
yeah.
me the kind of freedom that very few in this field get. I'm just I can't even put words around it. I'm honored to be, that they put that trust in me and then believe in the platform. And I'm sure you've got a base of people like that around you too. And it's just nice to
Amazing.
think about.
Amazing. Ryan, it is so easy to be a griftfluencer. I'm just telling you guys, we could get so rich. I seriously rich. Like, if you sell your soul and you're just like, I'm going to take the money and I'm not going to tell my audience, I'm going to take a position on, I don't know, pot or Israel or Bitcoin or pharma, and you just take that money in, man, every door opens. I've seen it a million times. So this is the harder way. I commend you for that. Let's continue this discussion, Ryan, one of the areas that you're very good on is the technocracy, the expansion of the digital security and surveillance and police state. You've done a lot of work on that. And I want to encourage you guys, his most recent podcast, Tiptoeing to Technocracy, is kind of an overview. It's a primer. It's excellent on, what we're dealing with here. But I do want to focus in on the recent news. President Trump announcing the DC police state, sending the National Guard, the military, in the attempt to clean up the city and combat crime and keep people safe. It's a complete bastardization. We acknowledge that DC is a slightly different entity than other states, but Donald Trump has said that this is going to move very quickly, and we are going to expand his police state and the military occupation into Chicago, LA, New York, Baltimore, just to name a few. What is your analysis regarding this? How concerned are you about it? And what do you think we should do moving forward?
Well, I mean, it's obviously concerning, and I think it's becoming quite clear that, like every other example of this, as even RFK and others have told you many times, the government never gives back power. It just
That's
doesn't,
right.
right?
Right.
And so what was the first thing he said about this that you just said? It's going to be quick. It's going to be real quick. And then, I mean, the first, maybe not the exact, but one of the first press conferences I saw right after this, days later, was, oh, well, we're going to have to extend this out. We're going to have to, what do you know? All of a sudden, there's an extension. And just like the Patriot Act or anything else, it's extended by every president left and right because they want the power, right? And it's always that I can do better or we can do it. The other side didn't do it right, whatever the game is. And so really, even the main thing that I keep saying, and I said this in that presentation, is that the wrong thing for the right reasons is still wrong, right? It's like lesser of evil. It's the same thing, guys. We're being played into accepting things that we know are not what we want, don't align with our values. And so the problem is that this is clearly unconstitutional in many ways. And the debate's always there, but it's just like debating whether illegal immigrants or visa holders or green card holders have constitutional rights. They do. Someone who is here illegally in this country is still protected under the Constitution.
Right.
It's a provable fact, and it's so frustrating that we have this argument with people that scream constitutionality but don't understand it or don't care about And so what they're doing is is I argue for the wrong reason too, but it's the wrong thing, and it is ultimately going to lead us in a bad direction. And so what I think is happening. I mean, the reason I included in the title was the technocratic tiptoe. It's a play on David Icke's totalitarian tiptoe. It's like the same idea, right, with technocracy. And the idea, what I see this as, and you might have seen that rumor going around that Trump was going to hand over DC to Peter Thiel. I don't know if you saw that, but it was kind of
I did.
people had said it. Yeah, it went around Twitter for actually a few months ago, and then it came back again recently when he talked about DC. And so it's like, okay, that's interesting. And then you notice that the whole Freedom City,
Yes.
which, by the way, if you look into 15-minute city, smart city, freedom city, we're in the same conversation, despite how people don't want to acknowledge that. If you look at the overlap with things like Prospera, right, which is this technocratic hellscape as far as I'm concerned, being framed as some libertarian city. It's not. I can go into that if you'd like.
Yes, I would love for you to go into that.
We can, yeah. I see that as a technocratic trial balloon for these kind of like technocratic takeovers of cities. So the point is that the people funding that are people like Peter Thiel and the circles around him. Now, on the surface, the people who are funding and proposing the idea of the Freedom City are Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, right? Who are also the people who are currently invested in things like Prospera, and then in that reference Prospera as the example. So there's no decoupling these things. That is what we're talking about here. And so now that all this comes together and we're starting to see the way this is rolling out, I think that, and this is just my opinion, I get the sense that maybe what this is the beginning, and that's not unique. A lot of people feel the same right now, that this is kind of the starting point from which it will grow into the other cities. And you make a good point about DC, right? It's not the same. Probably why that was chosen, right? Not
Right.
the seat of power, but also that it's a little different. It's harder to acknowledge. Most people don't understand the way that works. And they're almost playing on the desire of people in DC to want statehood so they can be involved in the voting process. And people don't even know that's how it works. And so I think that we're being played ultimately. But well, you tell me where you want to go.
Yes.
Take me in a different direction. You tell me where.
Well, I would like to focus in on the expansion of this 15-minute city, Freedom City, the technate, the technate. It's the vision, the 21st century vision, I think, of the techno-fascists, a new way to run cities, towns, villages, counties, governments, you name it. It is privately through a public-private partnership, the government and private oligarchs and transnational corporations come together to maybe you could liken it to back in the old days, the factory cities, right?
Yeah,
Where
yeah,
a corporation will come in, they buy up a plot of land, they bring in all the employees. You have to live in company housing, shop in the company store, buy the company insurance, right? And then by the end of the week, the paycheck that they gave was completely gone because you had to buy everything back from the company. A completely closed system that clearly is not freedom based or allows for any type of prosperity or wealth building for the small to little guy. So in terms of Prospera, what I'm hearing you say, and I agree with you, what we're seeing in DC, the militarization, the bringing in of military control, that's the first step. It's a small geographic um, area, but you're saying this is a template, a trial balloon for this new smart city or technate or freedom city or 15-minute city. So I would love for you to go into explaining what does that look like in the future for the average American. Will people know if this is coming to their town or village or their own city? And how does Prospera play into that? And because there are some horror stories of these
yeah.
these these corporate cities, and they're all over the world. So I'd love for you to just expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, we already have examples. Elon
Yeah.
Musk is doing something similar with a place in Texas with the center he built, and how it's already affecting people. Are being told they might not be able to keep their property rights. Like this is it's a takeover is how it looks to me,
Wow.
And we see places like Spruce Pine that was kind of like ignored in that epicenter of the hurricane. People focused on the lithium in a different area, which wasn't even the story because it turned out they already had the rights to it. But there was a small town that was like in the center of that. If people think the weather was controlled, it's worth considering. That was they produced this quartz sand that's like unique in the world for the it's like this is the one place in the world for the AI revolution, like what's the way like everyone framed it. And my point is, in this little town, all these Meta, Google, they're all popping up with these centers, and it's destroying the town. Businesses are leaving, and so it's like there's different ways it's happening. But it's, to me, this is sort of a technocratic takeover. And you talk about the technate, let's not forget that the whole what do they call it? But the framing of like that landmass of taking Canada and Greenland, that's the technique,
Mm,
guys. I mean, that's what it is. The North American Union, like it's exactly what they're all rolling out in different agendas. But so at the end of the day, this can look a lot different in a lot of ways. Now, the framing, you're right to frame it that way, at least the way they're presenting it, of sort of like a CEO run thing. That's how they're framing it, right? Henry Ford tried to do something similar. And the point is that it can go that way, and it's just as concerning as you would outline. It's a an authoritarian run thing. The idea being that they have the values you like, and so it'll be the world you want. But the likelihood of that continuing in a way run by one person that everyone's happy with, it's just, we know how this works. But it's
mm,
not just about that, right? There's the reason this is concerning, for other than just that it's an authoritarian run kind of location, is it's about the technocratic future they're building. If you want to understand what's going to lolook like, whether in the United States or anywhere else, it's all the things we're talking about. It's the social credit, it's the digital ID, it's the digital money, it's the control over everything in your life. You'll own nothing and be happy. That's what this is. It's the same kind of direction. And you can watch, like, for example, in Prospera, there's, I think it's called, I might be saying the name wrong. I think it's Life Circle or something like that, but it's a genetic uh, um, gene editing, genetic manipulation kind of a company that's working on those kind of things. And so there's nobody there watching what they're doing. There's no regulation. There's nobody, so how do we know they're not testing on people? It's just my opinions. But overall, it's kind of like this free, you know, Wild West kind of scenario for what they're trying to do. And we see what they want to do. We can listen to Alex Karp and Peter Thiel and Mark Andreessen and listen to their nightmarish visions, or Larry Ellison, who also supports all this, talking about
mm,
how we need everyone surveilled all the time so that everyone will act honest. I mean, that's how these people view the world. So a lot of this is up in the air, right? We don't know. Maybe this will go a different path. Maybe people will push back and it won't happen. But let's be real about what this is, and the funding and the people involved with all of them. There's interconnection you can't deny, and they want
mm.
a situation where they can do what they want, they can test what they want, they can control and surveil. I mean, look at what they're doing in the United States right now. the authoritarian and completely unconstitutional actions of removing all the siloed information and
Mm.
basically accessing it all and using it to train their models. That was denied when I first covered that, and now it's common knowledge. And that Israel now has, through a memorandum, access to everything they're using to train AI. The Israel, a country committing genocide, has access to all personal information through all of these trained models. I mean, it's just insane. I mean, we can go off about the ICE overlap, the biometric. The ICE is now using things to scan people's irises and biometric face scans. I mean, this is where this is all going. All that's being trained in Gaza, by the way, but that's a different topic. But
We can talk about Gaza. I would like to talk about Gaza actually after the break.
Mhm.
I'd like to get into that a little bit. Catherine Austin Fitz calls it the Gaza template.
Yeah,
It is a way to move people, to deny property rights, move people out of a physical location, create a crisis, create, whether it's a natural disaster or a war or any type of situation, use that as justification for complete lockdown and military violence, move
right.
people out of that. Then it is seized by a private corporation in conjunction with the government. And then you have the dystopian scenario that you laid out. And I would like to go there. One of the things that I think is different, it's one thing to have a corporate town or to have a corporation or CEO go in and try to do this kind of private thing. I don't like it. I think that there are many, many areas where abuse could happen and bad things. But I think the difference here, and this is why getting out of the two-party political paradigm is so critical. The thing that is different today, it used to be that the left was eagle-eyed when it came to big, nasty robber barons and corporations, man. They were there with a lawsuit. Walmart tried to come to your town. You had every tree hugger, every leftist, every Democrat organizing together to make sure that they didn't come to your town, right? And for so many years, Republicans and conservatives, their eagle eye was trained on the federal government, man. Big government, bloated government, the bureaucracy, they were always there to challenge the power and the authority of the government. But what we're seeing today is far worse. Both political parties have abandoned those principles. You now see them working together, and it is a merger, a public-private partnership, a coming
Right.
together of both the corporate technate and the government. And what a corporation cannot do, because they don't have nukes and guns and the military and a standing army and a navy and a surveillance and billions and trillions of dollars of taxpayer money to set up a control grid, the government can. And so, what a government can't do because of constitutional restrictions, the private corporations can. That's why you saw in the dark days of COVID, most of the coercive mandates came from private corporations, private universities, massive global corporations, not from government institutions, because the Constitution was still kind of working there. I mean, this is where I see, Ryan, the clear and present danger that is
Mhm.
unlike a danger that we saw 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, plus the technological advancements of AI and surveillance. It is a recipe for disaster. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. And to just add to that point, let's not forget, which I'm sure you covered, Detachment 201. You now have the literal embodiment of that idea. You now have the CTOs of Meta, OpenAI, and what was the other one? And Palantir,
Hmm.
all being added. They're now their CTOs are now lieutenant colonels in the military. That's
Yes.
insane. And I interviewed Brad Miller about this, who was formerly of the 101st Airborne. Remember, he resigned in protest because they were going to force him to take the shot. And so he made a good point about this. That first of all, not only they didn't have to go through any training, and well, first that lieutenant colonel is like the only people above them are colonels. So think about that. And his point is that they're not some kind of like honorary thing. They're lieutenant colonels. So in the military, there's no difference. They can command everybody underneath them, and they didn't earn that position. These are technocrats that have been shoved in there, and they didn't earn this. They didn't go through the process to get it. And he also pointed out that there are people in the military who are civilian in the military, right? Like in the labs, they wear lab coats, but they're still technically part of the U.S. military. So why did these people get put in military uniforms and fatigues if they didn't earn that? Like there's a weird thing happening there. It's really what we're describing, in my opinion, as I framed it. It's technocracy in uniform. We're watching the transition of power take place in front of us. And so that's what we're describing there is this kind of merging of these two things. That's fascism for you, at least one of the tenets of classic fascism, the merging of corporate and government entities.
And this is Detachment 201. Interesting, the 201. I don't know if you all recall Event 201. That was the simulation at Johns Hopkins University that simulated a lockdown and a rollout of a vaccine and 6-foot social distancing and forced masking. That was 6 months before coronavirus came to the United States of America and the pandemic. Detachment 201 was an extraordinary. We did cover it on the show, but just so the audience has an understanding, this was the military deputization, or they've been given military authority to corporate technocrats,
Yep.
right? With no training, no oversight, no, I mean, I don't know how you would hold them responsible or accountable. And as far as I know, Ryan, they haven't divested from
No,
their
no.
corporations and their corporate interests. So we have military. They were given lieutenant status or
Lieutenant
general.
Colonel. Lieutenant
Yeah,
Colonel, right, so that's the whole point is
it's
they're in the
crazy.
position literally, like, they are in the military, so you're right, the only thing they can be held accountable through is the military chain of command, and so there's only the colonels above them, so it's just like an insane shift of power
Insane.
that is deliberately making it to where, and the word he used is commissioned, like, they've been commissioned into the military, so this is insulting to anybody who worked. Brad said he put in 17 years to get to the position that he was at, and he's
Wow.
like lower than them, I guess, or less than I forget. What was it? I forget. I think it's one. Anyway, the point is just that it's clearly the thing that we've all been worried about. This very clear transition, giving people like that power. Think about the people we're talking about. Think about the Alex Karps and Teals and what they've said publicly. And what they're doing in the world. It is just more than alarming.
Yes. DJ8 with a comment on the live chat. Shannon, the problem is the patriot movement, the conservative constitutional movement, has been hijacked by MAGA.
Always.
There is no pushback, only excuses. At least when the left is in power, there is resistance to government tyranny. And
Yeah.
he's absolutely right. I am hearing from the new right, or the MAGA right, the Christian nationalists, these new influencers who have popped up with massive platforms, right? Saying that the ends justify the means. We have to suspend the Constitution in order to save the Constitution. We have to cancel liberty in order to save liberty. And they are not speaking out against this. Your thoughts on what needs to happen to alert? So, these influencers, they have huge audiences. And so we have conservatives and constitutionalists who would normally be up in arms about this, but they are completely asleep. They are fat and happy, not concerned at all because they trust their guy. Should they trust Trump at this point?
Well, no, but I don't necessarily agree with the framing, though. I know what you're talking about, and I see it too. Like this is why I refer to the team sport politics people. And the problem is that the Benny Johnsons and Jones and Cat Turds and those kind of people out there, they get framed by the other side of the dishonest media, both the corporate media, people in power, as the majority. That's what the majority of the right think. I don't agree with that today. The same way I didn't agree with it during COVID, which I think clearly fleshed out, is that most people were somewhat concerned, whether they were forced or coerced or threatened to be fired. People got forced into it. But I think we're looking back and see that most left and right people were pretty unnerved about what was happening. And so I
Right.
think the problem today is that we've got those screamers at the top who are interested in the status quo. They want to continue the gravy train or whatever it is that's driving them. And that there's a lot of people. I mean, we saw it with Israel. We saw it with Epstein. We saw these fracturing moments at the highest level between Candace and Tucker, or whoever. We saw these splits, or they were attacking each other based on these ideas. And so
Right.
I think that the majority, my opinion, but a lot of people do see this and just don't have the audience size, the Twitter accounts, the followings. And also a huge part of them don't want to speak up about it. Just like
Right.
in COVID, a lot of Democrats were terrified to come up and say you're wrong because they were going to get eaten alive. The same thing
Mm.
happens on this side, right? So I don't know where the line is. I don't know what the numbers are, but I believe that most people see the problem right now, and that's why this is really getting as insane as it is. But to address the problem you highlighted, because it is a problem, is that you have these people who, let's just take for a moment, not the screamers, the top that are going to lie about whatever they're told to, but the people that are maybe influential but believe what they're saying. There's a lot of them who I don't understand why you can't logically recognize that like I said, doing the wrong thing for the right reasons is still wrong. So breaking the
Right.
Constitution, violating it is somehow, that is blind faith in that these people will do right by you. And if you're a student of history, if you care about politics at all, you should understand how shockingly naive that is.
It
Whether
is.
or not they are the right people, they still probably won't do it based on history. So it's alarming. But to my point, I think most people are calling it out.
Yeah, the naivete is absolutely stunning, and I agree with you. I think there are more and more people, and I do think that the bots and the trolls,
Yeah.
one of the elements of uh, coercion is isolation, making you think that you're alone,
Yeah.
that you're sitting here saying, "I'm worried about the police state, and I voted for Trump, but I don't like this." Right? They want you to think that you're crazy, that you're alone, that no one else thinks that way, and that's why they use the siloing and the bots and the trolls. Let's go to break. We do have to take a commercial break, and then we'll have about 22 minutes to wrap up. I do want to go into the direction of discussion of Israel and Gaza. Again, this has been a major dividing factor,
Hmm.
especially right now among the right. I tend to believe that that might be the point, is to again divide people into factions, make them make a choice between Israel and Gaza. Doesn't mean that there isn't death and destruction. Doesn't mean that there might not be, or there might be a democide or a genocide happening right now. But I want to get your thoughts on this. I want to get your opinions on what is really going on in that conflict. It's so difficult to get the truth on this issue
Hmm.
because there is so much money, frankly, on both sides of the political aisle, and there's so much propaganda out there.
Right.
I've had a hard time grappling with it. I'd like to learn from you when we come back. So let's hit a quick break. When we come back, we will devote the rest of the conversation to this issue. Please put your comments and your questions in all caps in the live chat. We'll see if we can get to them today. We'll be back in a moment with the Last American Vagabond, Ryan Cristián, the Sat 123, the satellite phone store, and the amazing team over at this amazing website. It is everything that you need for preparation, everything that you need when the power goes out, when the storm comes, whether it's a generator to keep the power on, solar panels, a satellite phone. If we lose power and the towers go down and 5G, 4G, 3G, it's not working. These satellite phones are absolutely critical in getting in touch with loved ones, and they can actually be a blessing to an entire community. There's so many stories that Tina, the owner and founder of Satellite Phone Store tells about communities that have one satellite phone that was used to help hundreds of families redirect traffic, direct people to a safe a place or a place to escape a fire or a natural disaster. I mean, the stories are absolutely amazing. And not only can you protect your own family, but you can also be a blessing to your community when you are prepared. Please go to sat123.com/joy. That is sat123.com/joy. That is my page. And the folks at Satellite Phone Store always have amazing deals for the Shannon Joy audience. 10% off with that promo code JOY. That's 10% off your entire purchase with the promo code JOY. Everything that you need when the lights go out. The Faraday collection, the satellite phones, the generators, you name it, they have it. And we're so thankful for everything that they do for this show. So sat123.com/joy. Our friends over at Native Path. Hey, you guys know that my morning routine, one of the ways I stay healthy, almost 50 years old. I can't believe that I am almost halfway through a natural life. And one of the ways that I maintain a pain-free lifestyle and great hair, nails, and skin. Also, it's just a great way to restore collagen. You guys know it is my favorite, Native Path collagen. Every single morning in my coffee, it is a must. I use Native Path collagen. Devastatingly Handsome Dr. Joy uses Native Path collagen for his joint pain. It has helped him in so many ways. And I believe every person over the age of 40 should be implementing collagen into their diet on a regular basis. Reduces inflammation. There are so many good outcomes from that daily use of collagen. And Native Path collagen is the best on the market. It dissolves instantly. It has absolutely no taste. It is protein. It's beef derived, and it is absolutely clean. The best part, it is the best price point that you will find on collagen anywhere in the market. You won't find these price points at the drugstore. You won't find these price points at your discount grocery center. It is the best collagen for the best price, and you can only get it at getnativepathcollagen.com/joy. That's getnativepathcollagen.com/joy. Use that joy promo code for an additional 45% off. It's the only way you're going to get that stock up sale price. And I just recommend it. I've been using collagen for years. People ask me, how do you stay so young and vibrant, Shannon? And one of my secrets is, of course, Native Path Collagen. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. And yes, I did have my Native Path Collagen today, this morning, in my coffee. Love, 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 love that product. We have Ryan Cristián in the Joy Virtual Studio today. We are going to pivot the conversation, but it actually all melds together. The strategy, one of the things that clicked with me, Ryan, was an interview with Catherine Austin Fitz, where she explained the process of moving a free people or people in a geographic location out of private ownership, out of their homeland, in order to hand it over to the private corporate billionaires and oligarchs to kind of resettle the area. And I see that happening in a variety of ways here in the US. But of course, this is highly, highly controversial. It is a dividing line here in the US. Israel is involved in financial ways in nearly everything that we're doing. I'm very curious about your thoughts on this, your opinions. We have some questions already in the live chat, but what do you make of this conflict? What do you make of the allegations of genocide in Gaza? And how are you accessing good information and figuring things out with this? Because I'm having trouble with it.
It's an interesting question. I mean, first, I want to say one thing about the divide is that I think what we're seeing, same point, by the way, about what, like COVID and what else we talked about. I'm actually of the mind that it's not really as divisive as it seems, as being made into that by people that are influenced, compromised, bribed, blackmailed, whatever. That's my opinion. I think that what we're seeing today is the vast, vast, vast majority of the United States, the people of the world, beginning to understand what Zionism truly is, to understand what Israel's government truly is, which, and by the way, should have no immediate, assumptive. You shouldn't then use that to say every Jew or every Israeli or any one thing. That is the ignorance used to manipulate people into thinking that's what it's about. And that's what Zionism does. But my point, though, is that ultimately what we're seeing today is that I think most people are coming to terms with that and becoming aware of it, and that the division is happening from large influencers who are manipulated into attacking people for it, people in power and governments that are either compromised or in line with this and willing to suppress things for it, and platforms that are being driven by all of those things. That's an interesting way to look at it, right? But I could be wrong, but I think it's important to see all of the different things that are allowing that. And so to the question, I'm of the mind that this is one of the most shockingly obvious things I've ever seen in my life. Like, it is, there's 4K video, there's, World Food Program, every single human rights group in the world with any standing, including B'Tselem, who's the leading Israeli human rights group, all call this a genocide. I'll talk about the apartheid state before this. You have, every group that has any standing that's been there. An endless litany of doctors coming from all places in the world who all have the same point. They're executing people, they're murdering journalists, they're killing children, on the record, all of them, right? I mean, it's insane. All of the different, every single thing you can think about, you are watching this get played out in front of you. From people. The part that I just forgot there was IDF. Oops, make sure I didn't lose myself on the video there. IDF whistleblowers. There has been, I don't know, I think I don't want to say maybe 10 or more, but 972 magazine did 2 different articles about using AI, using Palantir's AI, by the way, to kill people in Gaza. And they had multiple IDF whistleblowers on each one of those articles who were admitting that one of the direct quotes was, we're taking down buildings just to take down buildings. We're bombing children, it was all on the record. So all of this is in a 24-hour cycle, constantly being filtered through. Now, of course, people can be lying, people could make things up. That's always the case, right? But the amount of evidence that we've seen, and then backed up by people withstanding, whether that's corporate or not, is just overwhelming. And then almost every single narrative that we've seen come out from the Israeli government, by the way, which is not unique. If you've been following this long enough, you look back to other examples of this, look at Robert Inlikesh's work, it's insulting how obvious these lies are and how they get caught lying and they just shift to a new lie. And I'm talking about the Israeli government. And so the reality is that their actions October 7th forward, they've been caught lying about almost every single part of the story. And some of these are difficult things to understand and listen to if you don't know this. But the reality is, let's take rape, for example. Regardless of how uncomfortable the topic is. And it's something that I'd say, like I said this early on, damn them for making me have to push into a story like this because they're high. The reality is the evidence has fleshed out, both from the United Nations, from independent groups, from Israeli whistleblowers, from people that they claimed were abused that turned out to be on the record not. And that's the woman with the gray pants they all used to claim that turned out not to be the case. That's their admission. The point is that didn't happen. The evidence is not there. On the other side of it, we can now prove as a matter of fact, that the Israeli government and the IDF have been allowing rape. I mean, they were people protesting to allow it. Their mainstream media had debates about why that should be allowed. This is stuff that the West sometimes doesn't get to see, or it's hidden from them. But all of these things, to the lies of beheaded babies, the lies of babies in an oven. I mean, every single one of these things, even reported by Haaretz, are lies. Like willful, deceptive lies. And so to understand this, you have to understand that this has been going on for 77 years. This has been an ongoing occupation and dehumanization of this people. That's not to say that there weren't crimes committed in reverse, but occupied people have the right to armed resistance, Geneva Convention. But
Sure.
to me, this is just, it's sad that it's so apparent, and that there's so many moving parts to this. Now, to come to your question, and I could go on for hours about you pick any one of these stories and I could break it down, the events that have happened, the bombing of hospitals, the claims of human shields. Every single one of these things have been proven to be false. If not, and that's not to say that it's not possible that they haven't done it in the past, but there is no evidence to back up the claims they've made so far. But to the point about Gaza, this is a really important overlap to all of this, is that really, very obviously, and I agree with Catherine on this, that there's more to this than just Israel's designs for the territory or their Greater Israel Project, which Netanyahu just publicly endorsed, which is that they have designs for Syria, which they're already taking. They have designs for Egypt, and which they already, are already pushing into, or Lebanon, or, it's a whole design of land grabs, and they're all proudly saying that. The point, though, is that Gaza is a starting point here, and it's also, I think, an opening for what we just were talking about. We saw the Gaza Riviera point, and what they show you on that video, some weird technocratic vision of the future. It's like this is where they're going, and I think this might also be an effort to create, like, here's what we can do, right? We took what we'll tell you was a desperate, terrible place that they turned into that place, and then say, here's what we turned it into. Look at how wonderful it is. This is what we can do everywhere, as Trump marching through cities and saving them. That's kind of what that feels like to me. But what they can do to an entire people, rationalizing dehumanization, and then claiming that, it's what's the word they use?
Well,
like that they're wanting to be moved when in reality they're desperately trying to stay. Go ahead.
right. So I hear what you're saying. One of my concerns with the blanket condemnation of Israel, right?
I hope that's no
To-
way that I give a blanket condemnation.
Okay.
To make that
Okay. To the exclusion of very real anti-Semitism. I mean, I get uncomfortable, right? I have criticized Israel ad nauseum. Bibi Netanyahu, the government of Israel, the expansion. October 7 was very concerning to me. It appeared to me as if they opened the doors and allowed that violence to pour into their country, and then use that as an excuse to use overwhelming force to then go into Gaza. I don't dispute that there is violence committed in Gaza. I do think, though, that it is very difficult to separate propaganda from what is really happening. And I think while there are billions poured into Israel in the pro-Israel narrative, I think there are also billions poured into the pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian narrative that I've seen over the years.
Well, let me jump in really quickly, though. I think that's a really hard statement to make, because it is a fraction of the amount of money.
Well, no, the Palestinians, though, they get the New York Times, they get the left, they get the Democratic Party, they get all of the international organizations, they get the UN, they get all of the human rights. I mean, from my perspective, from my perspective, the Gaza Palestinian narrative has has a massive propaganda effort behind them.
Everything
I
does.
think that
Yeah,
Israel does too, APAC, and
everything does.
what
Yeah.
they're able to do through coercion, bribery, the honeypot situation with people like Epstein. I think though when the direction is it's aimed, what I'm worried about is the same people who will criticize Israel in the same way that I will, and will say there could be a genocide happening here.
There is.
These are crimes against humanity, which I'm
Mhm.
not opposed to saying. In the next tweet or the next statement, it's all the Jews. It's all,
Okay,
and then
okay, let me jump in
disgusting,
though.
horrifying anti-Semitism that piles on all of the crimes of the world of humanity for the
What
past
we're discussing
5,000 years
is
on
horrible.
Jewish people, which drives me
I
crazy.
agree with you. That's disgusting
Okay.
and bad, and we should be criticizing that. But see, I don't get why that's brought up in what we're doing here, because look,
Because
I
I'm
think
trying, because every single time I try to engage in this and
Mhm.
have this conversation, I'm immediately pummeled by the Jews, the
But
nasty imagery.
but look, let's be clear. What the very first thing I said on this was, in no way is that meant to be overlapped with all Jewish people or all Israelis. That was like one of the first
Right.
things I said. So
I well, no, I
I
agree
get
with
that
you.
I
Yeah.
get that that's part of the conversation. Like so, but what I'm trying to understand is why that point is brought up while we're discussing this in a clear way that has nothing. Like I mean, I think I get what you're coming from, is that you're worried about that, right? That you
Yes.
see that there. Okay, I get that, but that should not scare you away from endorsing and seeing and acknowledging the truth, right? But let me put it this way: the obvious way that this is used, Zionism is. I mean, this is not. This is documented, and I'm not talking about like people on blogs.
Why don't you define Zionism,
Okay,
quickly?
Zionism is a
That might be
political
an
organization.
important part of understanding what's
Can
happening
I
here.
can I possibly play a video? Is that possible to do? Can I?
I'm not sure if we're able to do that.
Well, I'll
And
just
see,
play
here we have
one.
gun fed up right here. The brainwashing has worked on SJ. So now I'm
No,
brainwashed.
no, no. Let me say this. Here's what they're
Okay. Ryan, let's go through this. We can't do video, but
okay.
like, okay, so now it's happening. Here we go. Ready? So
So
we're having
okay,
this conversation, and I'm very concerned about the people of Gaza and the Palestinians, but I'm also concerned
it's
about Jews and people who believe in the Old Testament, and people who are religious and want to practice the
yeah, they're
religion
not
and
the
also
same
have a
thing.
hold in.
They're not the same thing. We have limited
Okay.
time, so let me just. So first of all,
Well,
what the person said to you, she said 5 minutes, right? Just so I didn't miss her like last
we
time.
have a little bit more than 5 minutes.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So the person who said that on the chat. Now, look, I think it's unfair for someone to make the statement the way they did. But look, what they're trying to say is that the mindset of ignoring, or rather, like what we're doing here, having a conversation where the first statement was like, look, this is about something other than blaming all Jews or even all Israelis, which even saying all Israelis, most people don't even do that. But it's important because there are Israelis, a lot of them, who are calling Zionism out right now, or
Right.
Orthodox Jews. So my point is that what they're saying is that they feel, I'm guessing, that you are being misled by the propaganda that makes you hide or ignore the genocide that we can all see. Now that's opinion. That's all. I mean, I don't think it's
Right.
opinion, but
Well, I'm not hiding it and I'm not ignoring it, but
yeah,
I am
I understand.
saying,
I'm
listen,
saying that's what I
I
think
am
you're saying.
I'm
But
cognizant of propaganda,
right,
and I'm cognizant of moneyed messaging.
yes,
And while
I
I
hear that.
acknowledge that Israel has moneyed messaging and propaganda, you cannot say that there isn't a money messaging
Okay,
machine
okay, but this is why I say that
behind the other
it's
side.
everywhere. If it's everywhere, then we can acknowledge that it's
Yeah.
everywhere, right? But then knowing that doesn't mean that you ignore information. It's like my tagline is question everything, right? So that doesn't mean
Right.
disregard anything. It means engage with everything, even the ones you know are probably lies, but be critical of them, right? So the point
Yes.
is, we know it's everywhere. So now that we know that and can establish there's probably lies and always are in every side of the conversation. The point is that what we're dealing with is an organization. Zionism is a political organization. It's hundreds of years old, whereas Judaism is thousands of years old. And,
Okay.
and there are Jews all over the world, Orthodox organizations that will scream to anybody that will listen. Zionism does not represent all Jews. It is a political organization that has hijacked Judaism and basically from the UK, the Balfour Declaration handed land that they decided to call Israel because of the meaning of that from the Bible. That's all,
Mhm.
that's the end of the day. Okay, so the reality is that this organization, I mean, take Herzl. The founder of Zionism was an atheist. It's easy to look up. He had a whole journal full of wildly anti-Semitic things about Jewish people. You can take the
Right.
Zionism movement. These are all facts. They're easy to look up. The
Yeah.
Zionism movement in the beginning, and this is a UN document you can look up, was adamant they didn't want the Jews from Europe to come over there because they saw them as weak and they didn't want. I mean, there's so many things like this. Zionism, on the record, aligned itself with Nazi Germany. before and during the final solution. So, and this is all, again, you can have these things on Wikipedia. Dan Cohen, a Jewish person himself, is very adamant about pointing these out to people. The point is that they wanted a fascist entity to make sure that they got what they wanted at the expense of damn near everything, including other Jewish people. And so they ultimately did, and Stalin as well. And so if we're going to pretend that they got this land and that the idea of Zionism is ultimately defend against things like the Holocaust, then we have to understand. We have to explain why it makes sense that they would align themselves with the group doing it while it was happening. It's built on lies. That's not to say that every Jewish person is a problem, or even every Israeli. I think right now more than ever, there are Jewish people around the world who are simply becoming aware of the lie around Zionism. And understand that they're using this to trick people into thinking Jews are the problem. So that's kind of what I sense the person in the chat was trying to say. But it shouldn't be a reflection on anybody if they're that you're willing to talk about this shows that you want to find out the reality of it, or that you're willing to consider that I may be right. It's a better way to frame it, right? And
it seems like and what your explanation makes a lot of sense to me. It reminds me of Christian nationalism. I am a Christian, a born again Christian. I've been a believer for 46 years. And, I would say that the Christian nationalist movement is a fascist movement, right?
It overlaps with Zionism. There's a very
Oh,
clear
sure.
connection.
Yeah. And I would say that there's, as you described, Zionism, it's a bastardization of Judaism. It does not reflect biblical truth. And I'm a girl who has read my Bible through in multiple translations 3 or 4 times.
Right.
So I know the word Old Testament and New Testament. And so, in terms of Christian nationalism, I can very clearly see how they will cherry pick scripture. They will manipulate the word in order to justify fascistic expansion. Right. But on the same hand, though, then I hear people condemning all Christians. Like, there will be people who say, well, you're an idiot because you are a believer, because you're a Christian, and you don't know, you've been conditioned because of your belief, and they're ultimately atheists themselves. So I absolutely see what you're saying. What I get criticism, they want me to just blast Jews.
See,
Can
I say one thing quickly, since we're running out of time? That is the manipulation, in my opinion.
Right.
Now, look, that's other people who have been tricked into thinking, in my opinion, that through Zionist lies that Jews are the problem, because that's what justifies their position. Or these are people, the bots or Zionists themselves, who are trying to scare you away from, or rather do 2 things: either scare you away from acknowledging it all, or switch it hardcore into it, Jews are the problem. And I think that's all part of the manipulation. And I think day by day, people are starting to see that. I mean, I'm a Christian myself. I mean, it's something I don't hide. I don't bring it into the show. But
Same.
My point, though, is that it's okay to question these things, because in my opinion, religion, I mean, it's not my opinion, religion is based on faith. It's not it's not like absolute, that we can prove it, right? And so of course I can question this. Is it possible that I'm wrong about what I believe in religion? Yes, but I choose to have faith, right? So it's like, the idea is that people can criticize you about these things all day long. There will always be somebody who wants to use something you believe against you, but as long as you're willing to ask those questions and consider, could I be wrong about anything? Then I think you're on the right path. I think all this is important to consider. And I think what's happening today is, because of this conversation, people are starting to question everything.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons why, I wish that people would condemn Bibi Netanyahu and the government of Israel and the Zionist political movement, right? Like, that's where the problem comes. I agree. Because they are not precise with their language, and then they extend it to a race of people, a religion, an entire group of people. That's when everything falls apart.
Time for one more point?
Yes, go for it.
So I think this is important to include as well. And see, it might almost be counterintuitive because we're going so quickly, but it's important to understand. This is where I reference B'Tselem, the leading Israeli human rights group. One of the lines that says, in regard to acknowledging that they have an apartheid state in Israel, 2021, I think, it says Jewish supremacy from the river to the sea. That's the title of the article. And so the point is that you can't decouple these things. There are clearly people who are that they're Jewish, who believe in Jewish supremacy within the realm of Zionism. That exists.
Right.
So you have to acknowledge that's part of it. Not every Jewish person is a problem, because I honestly think that the supremacy that exists is because of Zionism. Same thing we see with the Christian extremism in this country that overlaps with that conversation. I think it's all stemming from the same thing, but for sure. But I think that's all kind of a good kind of crash course to understand how this is manipulating people.
I think this is a good conversation, and there's no one else I would want to have it with than you, Ryan, Cristián, and I appreciate you talking about the plight of the Palestinians and what is happening in Gaza and bringing some clarity to this discussion because it's important and it's nuanced. It isn't anti-Jew or anti-Israel or anti-Hamas or anti-Palestinian or pro either. I think it's something a little clearer, but also more complicated than that. But I appreciate you very much.
Well, thank you. And thanks for having the conversation. I mean, this is what
Right.
we need to be doing, you know?
Yeah, would love to do it again. Ryan Cristián, you can follow him on Twitter. His handle is at TLA Vagabond. You can support him. Go in, make a donation, support his independent effort and his organization, the lastamericanvagabond.com, the lastamericanvagabond.com. I see lots of comments in the live chat. I will pop in to chat with you guys in a moment. But Ryan, I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon. See you next time.
All right. And thank you guys for being with us today on the Shannon Joy Show. That's a wrap. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again. Thank you to our sponsors, Colonial Metals Group, PCM and Associates, our friends over at Native Path Collagen, and of course, all of our other partners. We are so thankful for all of you. You guys have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.